Welcome to this episode of Catapult. My name is Mikey Muhanna. I'm joined with David Knox of the British Council. Welcome, David.
Thanks, Mikey. Great to join you.
So, Catapult, which is a program that the British Council is really spearheading in Lebanon, focuses on the creative economies, and in particular, 4 specific creative economies. If you can shed some light as to why that is something that is important, and why that is something that you hope may make an impact on the broader economy and the broader society.
Of course. I mean, if we go back to when I arrived in Lebanon, there had been the report produced by McKinsey Consulting for the government of Lebanon, and it identified a number of sectors of opportunity where they saw opportunity for economic growth. I mean, I'd like to put in a little plug for the British Council. We saw that 10 years earlier in about 2008. But in a sort of cycle of history repeating itself, I spoke to the person responsible who commissioned research for us back in the noughties. And the report wasn't published, or it wasn't promoted in the way we would have wanted, because we were waiting for the Lebanese to form a government. That, I'm afraid, has been a cycle of Lebanon's recent past too. But I think the exciting thing about becoming a creative economy is it requires very little resources. I mean, in the 21st century, it really requires 2 things that aren't always available in Lebanon. It requires an internet connection, and it requires power. Assuming for a moment that we have those things, we see an amazing amount of talent across Lebanon in who could respond to that economic opportunity. And I think why the British Council are involved, I think because the UK itself has a world-leading creative sector, whether it's in almost all areas of artistic and creative endeavour, from film and television, theatre and dance, music. The UK is known for its cultural sector, its creative sector. And in engaging in this project, we want to be able to share some of the models, experiences that we've had in the UK for Lebanese practitioners to be able to lock onto and see what aspects of that they can apply in obviously a very different context.
Yeah, I'm curious about the selection of the 4 industries, which are being focused on, which are gaming, visual arts, music, and dance. Obviously, there are many industries that could be chosen, and maybe not an endless amount of resources. So, give us a little insight as to why those 4 were chosen and the opportunities there.
So basically, creative economy is part of our strategy. It's the global strategy for the next 5 years at the British Council, and it was important for us to think that focus in terms of the current context here in Lebanon. We all know that creative economy would have a major impact on kind of restoring the situation here in Lebanon. We have a lot of potential. We have a lot of people that are excited about what they do, and this could bring a lot of returns. For us, creative economy is definitely a major focus here in Lebanon. So when we started thinking of what we can do, we wanted to make sure that we're going to be working with sectors in which we can create a true impact. What does that mean in general, especially in the current context? This is what we wanted to understand. And this is where we started a market research, but we also reach out to a lot of different stakeholders to kind of engage in true conversations that would give us that preliminary understanding to kind of decide in which directions we wanted to go and what we can build. After a lot of discussions, after a lot of engagement with people that have a lot of passion, with people that also chose to kind of stay in Lebanon, make sure that they're creating opportunities, we found in those people, in those partners, a motivation that we're looking for, but also we found in them the expertise that would help us reach as many individuals as possible and make sure that we're kind of creating new links with the creative people in these different sectors. So the 4 creative sectors that we chose are the gaming industry, music, visual arts, and dance and performing arts. We believe that all other sectors have a lot of potential for sure, but at the end we have limited capacities, and we thought that a focus on these 4 sectors would allow us to think a pilot initiative that would grow. And this is when CATAPULT was born. CATAPULT, as I said, is a pilot initiative. It is thought as a talent and a professional development program. So we have 4 sub-programs or sub-projects. So CATAPULT Sonic, CATAPULT Body, CATAPULT Digital, and CATAPULT Visual Arts, each linked to one of the sectors. And we made sure to choose amazing partners that function as a hub. This was important to us because, again, wider reach, more people that can engage in the programs and benefit from it. Our partners are Yaraka in the dance and performing sector, performing arts sector, Station Beirut in the music sector, the Lebanese game developers in the gaming industry, and Art Lab and Ghassan Salami in the visual arts sector. I have to say that the scope of work in each program is quite different. Sometimes we felt like we wanted to engage in different activities and components. Sometimes we wanted to test waters and kind of understand better the potential of that sector. Again, based on an understanding of what are the challenges, but also what are the ambitions of people when it comes to these sectors, because we believe that we shouldn't look only at the current situation. It is, of course, embedded in how we're thinking the program. But then again, we want to make sure that there is a longer vision on what can come later on. And this is where the name comes from. So we're kind of trying to catapult as much as possible away from the situation towards a more exciting future with whatever tools that we can provide through these programs. So we're going to be talking much more about those programs, and we're going to talk in details also about why we kind of chose the components that we chose, but also what kind of exchange we made sure to create with the UK. Cultural exchange is also part of our focuses in our strategy. We wanted to make sure that there is a true exchange, a peer-to-peer exchange with UK artists and UK entities. So each time we found also amazing partners in the UK that could kind of bring something exciting to the projects.
You know, it's interesting, insofar as you've been here since 2018 and you've witnessed the crisis sort of erupt and unfold, I'm curious if you have any sort of projections of the future. What are some of the bright spots that you've noticed through the work of the British Council, sources for hope, sources for inspiration of future partnerships and programming? What are some of the bright spots that you've noticed?
Well, it is incredibly difficult, and I wouldn't want to minimize or underplay the challenge that people face. But I think there are a number of reasons to be hopeful, and I'll name 3. You might have to bear with me. The first is in that broad category of young people. I think young people are emerging into Lebanese society, and they have a different view of the world to their parents and their grandparents. And I hope that whilst the aspirations of October 2019 may not yet have been realised, that they still have hope in the difference that they can make. And obviously 2022 is a very important year in as far as we have elections. And again, I seek to encourage all young Lebanese to make a difference and make their voices heard. So that's one sector. If I come to areas in which we work closely with Lebanese partners, I would say in arts and culture. I am constantly in awe of the people who work in the creative sector, that they continue to practice, they continue to create. And again, I find that so important, that the creative spirit is still alive amongst Lebanese artists and performers of all descriptions.
You know, you keep on using a specific word, partners. You don't use the word grantee or, you know, organizations that receive funding. You mentioned this idea of partnership. How is that related to the sort of methodology and philosophy of the British Council in actually doing its work in Lebanon and globally?
The strength of our approach as the British Council is we believe in two things. You know, it's about mutuality. None of this stuff is one way anymore. You know, as I say, in a colonial past, there was a one-way transaction with a winner and a loser. I think the UK and people I encounter and have encountered in my career in the British Council learn as much from their overseas partners as they do from their own experience, and often, and I take my own experience of living and working in Lebanon, I have learned more in my 4 years around resilience, crisis response, crisis management, than you could learn in decades elsewhere. So that sense of mutuality. And I think the other thing about partnership that is important to me is that it's co-creation. We don't have all the answers, and we don't have a monopoly, and we certainly don't have all the answers when we start. But by working closely together with partners and through partnership, we can hopefully arrive at stronger, more fit-for-purpose solutions.
Well, thank you so much for your work and for joining us. I'm excited about the program, and I'm excited as a resident of Beirut to be able to benefit from some of the work that you're doing.
Thanks very much, Mikey.